It's the Sunday Pilot here with another Sim Sunday, and this is episode number 2 of my long haul series, where I attempt to prove that ultra long haul flights under near real world conditions are possible in flight sim. And as you can see in this flight, I'm on board the Qantas 787-9, and yes, that means I'm trying to recreate Qf10, the Qantas non-stop service from London Heathrow to Perth in Western Australia. In the last episode, my real Airbus pilot friend flew the Flight Factor Airbus A350-900, an 18-hour flight from Singapore to New York JFK. So it's now my turn to try a 17-hour flight on board the Qualitywings 787-9 in prepared 3D version 4.5. As I explained in the last video, the Singapore A350-900 ULR used on the route between Singapore and New York is a special aircraft with only 2 classes, business and premium economy. However, the Boeing 787-9 used by Qantas is a standard aircraft with a 3-class configuration: business, premium economy, and of course economy. So as I started to input my weights and balances into the EFB, I realised I was going to be heavy, and I mean really heavy. In fact, the V2 speed today was going to be 172 knots, providing me with a takeoff challenge I've never had yet in my flight sim career. Getting right into sim brief, I had a couple of options, both with a flight time of 16 hours and 40 minutes. However, I chose this route, departing on runway 27 left with a right hand shortly after takeoff, before turning right again, doubling back on myself overhead northern London, heading towards the Essex coast. Crossing the North Sea, I would arrive overhead Amsterdam in the Netherlands before crossing Germany, Poland, Belarus, and then into Russian airspace. Turning southbound towards the Stans, we'd end up over India in the early hours of tomorrow morning, before crossing the Bay of Bengal in the direction of Phuket in Thailand, and then down the Malaysian coast towards Singapore. We'd then cross Indonesian airspace before arriving off the northwest coast of Australia. As I said previously, the total in-air flight time was calculated at approximately 16 hours and 40 minutes, putting the gate-to-gate journey time at a little over 17 hours. And I'd be planning to take on board £282,000 of fuel. And if all went to plan, I'd be landing in Perth with a little under £28,000 in reserve.
Gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you aboard this flight on the
Heathrow, clearance delivery, Qantas 10 Heavy, this type Boeing, IFR, Perth, ready to copy. Qantas 10 Heavy, declared Perth Airport, is filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 6,000. Departure frequency is 125.625, squawk 0322. Speedbird 185, this type Boeing, Newark Airport.
Hello Captain, we are ready for pushback. Locking gear. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Contact ground on 121.9. Flight delivery, Scandinavian 526, type Boeing 737, IFR, London Heathrow, Scandinavian 52515. Altitude 12,000, departure frequency 125.625. Heathrow, fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 12,000.
Set waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
625, squawk 0337. American, cleared to Kennedy. Delta 1 is cleared to Kennedy. Delta 1 cleared to Kennedy Airport.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
Departure on 125.625, squawk 0605. Delta 1, correct. Speedbird 1430, cleared 430, cleared to Belfast Airport, is filed. Heathrow, ground, Qantas 10 Heavy, with information, India, West taxi, IFR. Qantas 10 Heavy, taxi holding Whiteford, runway 27 left, via taxiway Foxtrot Bravo Kilo Alpha, November 2 Echo, November Bravo 2 Echo. Contact tower on 118.7 when ready. Speedbird 1430, with information, India, request taxi, IFR. Speedbird 1430, taxi holding Whiteford, runway 27 left, using taxiway Yankee Alpha,
finally, we're moving towards runway 27 left here at Heathrow, or should I say a very busy Heathrow. I uninstalled Ultimate Traffic Live Beta version 2 a couple of days ago, and I'd reinstalled version 1.2, which was certainly generating plenty of traffic at Heathrow today. And this is probably a good point to tell you that I had set the timer back to the 1st of September 2019 to do this flight, and I'd also set Active Sky back to the same day, so I was using the historic weather from the very day that was the 1st of September 2019. At the point of recording this video, it was mid-December 2020, and of course during the coronavirus pandemic, international flights to and from Australia were banned. And the Qantas Qf10 non-stop service from London Heathrow to Perth wasn't due to restart until mid-2021. Right, getting back to my taxi to runway 27 left here at London Heathrow Airport, and as you can see, I'm one of an awful lot of other aircraft waiting to enter the runway and depart Heathrow this afternoon. Of course I could put the clock forward a few minutes and kill all of this traffic. However, why bother when I can take a right turn here and try to get an earlier slot onto the runway. But remember, I'm really heavy, my V2 is 172 knots, and this decision may come back to bite me in the bum.
Qantas 10 Heavy, ready for IFR departure, runway 27 left, Qantas 10 Heavy, hold short, runway 27 left, traffic is Boeing 777 on the runway. Speedbird 778, line up and wait, runway 27 left. Line up and wait, Speedbird 778. Delta 1, contact Heathrow departure on 125.625, Delta 1, good day.
Tower, Speedbird 14, treat heavy at runway 27 left, ready for departure, IFR to Delhi.
Speedbird 14, treat heavy, hold short, runway 27 left, traffic is Airbus A320 on the runway. Qantas 10 Heavy, line up and wait, runway 27 left. Line up and wait, Qantas 10 Heavy.
Hold short, runway 2.
Approaching 27 left.
Speedbird 778, contact Heathrow departure on 125.625. Over to 125.625, Speedbird 77855.
On runway
Qantas
27
cleared for
left.
takeoff, runway 27 left, service wind 29er2 at 10. Clear for takeoff, runway 27 left, Qantas 10 Heavy.
Check thrust.
Delta 2 line up and wait, runway 27 left. Line up and wait, Delta 2.
Thrust set. 80 knots. Check. B1. Rotate. B2. Positive rate. Gear up.
Qantas 10 Heavy.
Autopilot on.
Heathrow departure on 125.625. Over to 125.625, Qantas 10 Heavy. Departure, Qantas 10 Heavy is at 1,300. Climbing altitude 10,000. Qantas 10 Heavy. Heathrow departure, Roger. Altimeter 3006. Juliet Bravo, Captain Boeing,
In just a few
inside.
minutes, we will be beginning our complimentary meal and beverage service in both first class and coach. In coach, beer,
After
wine,
takeoff
martini,
Heathrow
checklist.
departure,
with
Delta
Deborah
2 is climbing
We
through
apologize
900
for not
for
accept
Delta 2
cash.
10
In-flight entertainment
Delta
available
2,
on this
Heathrow
aircraft
departure,
audio,
Roger,
video,
altimeter,
and
train
as well as
006.
Altimeter setting.
Delta 2, turn right heading 290, resume on navigation.
Get Bravo, don't hold approach. Roger. Altimeter 3006. Flight
2118.475, Qantas 10 heavy, goodbye. You are 88 miles southwest, turn right heading 0, turn right heading 070, expect vectors ILS, runway 27, approach. Turn right heading 1.
I have to admit, I never thought I was going to get off the ground at London Heathrow. It took a long time to get to 172 knots. However, we're now airborne and I've got a lot of step climbs to make before I get to my initial cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. We would finally reach flight level 410 or 41,000 feet, but that wouldn't be until south of Singapore in a little over 12 hours time. So as I continue my step climbs while burning off fuel overhead Amsterdam in the Netherlands, I'll be shortly turning the cameras off. However, I will come back into the video if I see anything interesting during this very long flight to Perth in Western Australia.
Flight 10 heavy. Please expedite your climb to flight level 330.
Turn left heading 245, proceed on course, climate, Logan, 5, Embraer, Delta Uniform Hotel.
At around 14 hours after departing London Heathrow, the Australian coastline finally comes into sight. But of course a key task for me during this flight has been to monitor my fuel. And with just over 40 tonnes of fuel still on board, I knew that I would have plenty to get me to Perth. And of course with the descent ahead of me, the FMC put me at 28 tonnes by the time I landed. Proving already that you can complete an ultra long haul flight in the Qualitywings 787-9 in prepared 3D version 4.5. I'd recently upgraded to Orbx Australia version 2, so I was expecting some really great views on our approach into Perth this afternoon.
Descent
1, Qantas 10 Heavy, good day.
Just in case you are wondering, we're being vectored onto an approach for runway 3 at Perth. That means we're heading out over the Indian Ocean for a bit before turning left again, and making an approach from the south over the southern part of the city towards the airport in the north. So we'll get plenty of good views of Perth City itself and Fremantle as we make an approach to runway 3 at YPPH. My last visit to Perth for real was in July 2008, and I have to admit that I was really impressed by this gorgeous city on the Swan River. However, when you're there, you cannot hide the fact that Perth is a very isolated city, even from the rest of Australia. I had arrived in Perth from the eastern side of Australia, and the flight was nearly 5 hours long. Yet I left Perth on board a Singapore 777-200, and the flight from Perth to Singapore took about the same time as it did from Sydney, which clearly demonstrates the size and the scale of this beautiful country that is Australia. Anyway, back to our virtual flight on board the Qf10. I've been vectored onto finals at runway 03.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 3, Qantas 112.
Please return all seat backs and tray tables to their upright and stowed position. Ensure all portable electronic devices are turned off, and stow all carry-on items.
Qantas 10 Heavy, cleared to land, runway 3. Over 2128.1, Qantas 112, your banks behind. Cleared to land, runway 3, Qantas 10 Heavy.
Approaching 03.
Approaching minimums. Minimums. 200. $100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Seating area, in the seat pockets, and overhead bins for all personal belongings that you brought on board. Please take care when opening the overhead bins, as the contents may have shifted during.
And there you go, we made it to Perth. And remember, when we were approaching the Australian coastline, the FMC was suggesting we would have £28,000 of fuel left when we arrived. Well, we actually had £26,000 worth of fuel, so I have to admit it was fairly accurate, especially when you consider at the time the FMC didn't know our approach into Perth would be out over the Indian Ocean before a number of left-hand turns in the direction of runway 03. So I think the FMC was extremely accurate when it forecast our fuel burn on this 16-hour and 37-minute flight from London Heathrow to Perth, Western Australia. So that brings to a close another Sim Sunday and the second in our ultra long haul series. In the next video, my real Airbus pilot friend will be back in X-Plane and the Flight Factor A350, attempting to fly from Qatar to San Francisco. And after that video, I will bring this ultra long haul series to a close by attempting a flight from Dubai to San Francisco in the PMDG 777-300ER. So if you want reminded when those videos are going to be published, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on the bell icon. So until then, thanks for watching.